Grab a drink of your choice. I have a nice latte. You know what I think the worst feeling in the world is? Is when your worst fear becomes a reality. As human beings, we are used to being led by fear, and fear had a purpose in the past. And even in the present, when it was meant to protect ourselves from pain. Fearing meant protecting you, even protecting the ones you love. The problem is, as that sentence we say, most of the things we fear never actually happen. Most of our fears never become a reality. But what happens when actually your worst fear, what happens when your worst fear in the whole world becomes a reality? How does that change you? So, what does it actually happen when your worst fear becomes a reality? Now, this is one of the worst feelings in the whole world, because when your worst fear becomes a reality, normally it's something really big. Or when it's a betrayal, that your partner, your girlfriend, your boyfriend cheats on you. These are fears that we tend to have and live by for a long time. But we actually never believe, we never really think that there's a chance of them becoming a reality, but we fear the possibility of them becoming a reality. So our brain is just like, I'm going to try to protect you. But when we spend maybe even years telling ourselves, trust your partner, telling ourselves, trust that best friend with all the secrets you've told them, you've shared with them. And we somehow keep fear slightly controlled by keeping this relationship, by keeping this friendship. And then suddenly one day, after years, we realize that our worst fear became a reality, or was in fact a reality, that your best friend was telling all of your secrets to someone else, that your partner was cheating on you. Something changes within your brain, and I'm not even sure that it can be rewired or that you can get yourself back. But I do think that there's some sort of way into which you can get yourself back. You will not be the same person, because I deeply think that something changes within your brain. Because now you're not just protecting the possibility, you're just not fearing the possibility. You have failed protecting yourself. You failed the reason why you feared that, because you feared it because it could be true, but you trusted that it will not be true, right? But you failed. You didn't fail, but you feel like you failed because you failed protecting yourself from the pain that you will suffer knowing that that partner betrayed you, knowing that that best friend betrayed you. And now, when your worst fear becomes a reality, you're just thinking, how can I trust myself or anyone ever again? How do I trust my gut feeling, my intuition? Because when this happens, when your worst fear that you tend to spend years protecting yourself from and like it's not going to happen, actually becomes a reality, now we're screwed. Because now your brain rewires itself and it's like, oh no, my worst fear was true. The worst thing that could happen in my life became a reality. And at the same time, it's weird because it's like nothing scared you more than that becoming true. And that became true. So in some sort of strange way, you're like, wow, I'm still surviving this and nothing worse could have happened. But it's still, this damages your brain and it rewires your brain into thinking, I screwed up, I screwed protecting you, protecting us, and it makes you go into defense mode. Everything becomes a threat. everyone just feels unreliable. Everyone just looks like they've got strange intentions. Everyone just looks like someone you cannot rely, you cannot trust, you cannot share things with. Because if the person you actually trusted betrayed you, how are you going to trust someone you don't really feel safe with or around yet? It all becomes a mountain. It all becomes very, very sharp, very difficult. And you are just... because nothing worse could happen. We are used to our own and worst fears just being that fears. We never actually really believe they will become a reality. And now we just stop thinking good things can happen. We stop thinking good people exist. We stop doubting ourselves and the things that we like. We stop doubting ourselves with every single thing, even with outfits. Does this actually look good? Do I look like a clown? Does it make sense? Do I look ugly today? You start doubting everything around you, including yourself, because now you know that the worst can happen because it happened to you. And even the world may try to convince you otherwise. It happened to you, and now you know best. And now you know that the worst did happen, and it can happen again. Not just in movies, not just to strangers, but to you. And obviously your brain is now like, now it's actually, I promise it's never going to happen again. I'm going to take care of you. I'm going to level up. But the problem with this is that your brain prepares you for it, and it doesn't allow you to live peacefully because it believes it cannot live peacefully anymore. You become a version of yourself that is constantly waiting for the next hit. You're just trying to figure it out where it's going to come through. And maybe you're just like me and you've stayed up all night, many times replaying the moment that it all changed. The moment that you found out that massive betrayal. You just tried to make it make sense. But let me tell you, it never will. It never will make sense. You can really try to make it make sense, but it doesn't. And you know deep down that whatever happened didn't make sense on the first place. So you're never going to actually get to understand why some people are bad, why some people are evil, why they have bad intentions. You will never understand it, or you will never find enough of a reason to feel peace, to find peace. Even thinking, oh, they're evil, it still will not give you peace, because you're just not a bad person. You're not a bad person. You have never done that to them. So there's no point. Nothing will bring you peace. Let them be who they are. Use a theory. Let them do evil. That's how they are. Your friend, your boyfriend, your girlfriend. That's how they are. And you digging and trying to figure it out will not give you any peace. It will not. Maybe the moment you will think you solved the mystery, but you never did. Because you can't solve it, because you're not them, because you're not in the head, because you're not who they are, because you actually have a good heart. And that makes you you, and that makes you unique and beautiful, and it will never make sense to you. Because you never will have done something like that. Even if you try to believe you're a bad person. But I also think that when our worst fears become a reality, maybe even more than once, if you actually analyze the fact that they were fears, I know most of our fears never happen. But when your biggest fear becomes a reality, biggest fear, why was it the biggest fear on the first place? I think this is what has brought me peace. Why was it the biggest fear for me? there was a reason of why that was my biggest fear. And it was because I somehow knew deep down, my gut feeling, your gut feeling, you knew deep down that there may have been a possibility that certain thing was taking place. But that's actually why it became your biggest fear. And sometimes we do feed our biggest fears, and we're just not right. But when something becomes your biggest fear for such a long time, you really need to ask yourself, why is this my biggest fear? And this question is going to save you so much time. If this person who is my boyfriend, my girlfriend, and then betraying me, or my best friend, and then betraying me is my biggest fear, what's allowing them to make me feel like this? Why am I feeling like people that should love me most, that I should feel safe and loved and protected with? Why are these people making me feel unsafe? And why them betraying me has suddenly or during years been and become my biggest fear? When you ask yourself that question, you start to realize that maybe they are not such a good partner. Maybe they are not a really good girlfriend or a really good boyfriend, because your biggest fear is that they betray you. Something is not right, and maybe it's actually just the fact that you're insecure, but in most cases you do not really trust them, and you probably have reasons not to trust them. So you should look into those reasons and take action. Same with a friend. If your biggest fear is your bestie gossiping your secrets or something you shared with them privately, maybe they did something in the past that you realized that they are not someone to be trusted. Maybe they betrayed another friend of yours. Maybe they told you secrets about somebody else. Maybe they just make you feel like they could tell you secrets. And even though our body is trying to protect us, the fact that you're also feeling this way, that's also telling you something. Your gut feeling knows something's not right, and it's trying to protect you. Biggest fear, not a fear, your biggest one. Something's not right with these relationships if they're making you feel in such way. So I think this is something to reflect on. And if it already happened to you, well, now you know. Now you know that they're not a good friend or a good partner. Now you will know next time to watch out for these signs. And now you will also learn to value more and love your gut feeling. Sometimes we want to ignore our gut feeling and think we know better. We're just being paranoid. But your gut feeling is just how you feel internally. It's energy, and it's very powerful. It's very powerful. And the longer you ignore it, the longer you shut it down, the worse it will be in the future. So I think you have to learn to listen to it, and also have empathy for yourself. Whatever happened to you, it was not your fault, and now you're not as naive as before. And even though it's hard when your worst fear becomes a reality, out of everything, I do think it makes you wiser, because now you're not going to be years thinking, oh, this is my biggest fear, that they betray me in this way or that way. Now if you feel that next time with someone else, you will look into why you're feeling that way. Speak with certain person you need to, or remove them out of your life. And you will not be punishing yourself for years, thinking, they may betray me. I don't trust them. This is my biggest fear. If this happens, my life is over. It will not happen, because as soon as you feel it, you'll solve it one way or another. You will know if you're being paranoid or if you're not. And you will not be wondering, because you were just naive, because you're human and you're learning. And we're not supposed to know everything at once. So I think above everything else, you become wiser. And your brain rewires itself, but also your brain learns not to suffer as much. And that's powerful, and I really like that. And I really hope this video made sense, and I really hope to see you soon, and that you're okay and healthy, and I love you. Have a wonderful day, and I'll see you very soon.